Welcome back to Fourth and Favre, episode 22. I'm joined with the one and only number 4, Mr. Brett Favre. Brett, how you doing this morning?
I'm good. I'm sure you got the same front that went through Austin that came through this morning. Yesterday it was 87 and humid, and it's far from that this morning. I mean, the wind chill's got to be in the 20s. A dramatic difference.
It's interesting because, Brett, I traveled to Tulsa 2 days ago. I've never been to Oklahoma, and I was in Tulsa for the first time, and it was a 20, 30-degree difference from Oklahoma and Austin, and it's one state up. When you were growing up in Mississippi, what state did you go north and you're like, "Hey, it's a lot colder than Mississippi"?
Well, I grew up in the like if you look at Mississippi on the map, the bottom left-hand corner of the state is where I grew up. I mean, as a crow flies, we were 3 or 4 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. Uh, I can't tell you how many Christmases I was hoping for cold, and definitely snow I was hoping for, but I would have taken just cold as an alternative. Uh, that never happened. We didn't get cold weather, or we don't get cold weather, um, like Kansas or Oklahoma or Wisconsin. Um, so growing up, the furthest north I ever traveled prior to playing football at Southern Miss was Tupelo, Mississippi. That's as far north as I ever went. And then when I played football at Southern Miss, we played at Louisville, we played at Memphis, and um, uh, those teams. And so, really, when I was traded to Green Bay, that was kind of a aha. Like, okay, you wanted the cold, you got it.
Episode 22. If you get this right, Brett, I have $22 for you when I see you later this week. So, guess what 22 stands for?
Doug Flutie.
I owe you 22. I'm going to hand it to you
Am
first.
I right?
You're 100% right. How did you know, Brett?
That was the first thing that flashed in my mind. Doug, I mean, it was a long time ago, but that play that he scrambled around, and I think he was at BC and they were playing Miami, if I remember correctly, threw a Hail Mary. And it was very, very rare back in those days uh, to have a non-quarterback number. So 22 would have been a running back, possibly a corner or a nickel back or something like that, not a quarterback. And, Doug didn't, there's a lot of things about Doug Flutie that you got to love. I mean, he was undersized. He was kicked to the curb everywhere he went, but yet when he played well and has some dramatic wins. And the one I'm speaking of was probably his most famous, where he threw a Hail Mary against University of Miami. But I just remember thinking, why is he wearing 22? And I don't know if I've ever gotten an answer. Not that I need one, but it was him and his number, so he made it look pretty good.
Brett, from episode 1 to 21, you only got it one time. You got 21 was prime time, and then now you get it 2 times in a row. I'm not betting you again on the third one. But here's my question about Doug Flutie. The guy was about all of 5'9". He was a small guy. How the heck did he play in the NFL with guys 6'5", 6'4", 6'3"? How could he see over the line, and what made him good?
Well, I don't know the exact answer to how. I mean, he was a good player, first of all. I mean, you think about sports in general, uh, just think about really good players in those sports. And there's short, there's tall, there's strong, there's slow, there's fast. There's a grab bag of different body makeups. you know, and then there's those things, those intangibles that you can't measure at the combine, and that the heart and effort and determination, grit, whatever you want to call it. There's no test that you can. And I think Doug, probably throughout his playing career, certainly early on, in his younger days, was probably told, "You're too small. You'll never make it." Was told all that stuff. And there's probably been a lot of athletes, men or women, that have been kind of told the same thing. You're too slow. You got two left feet. Whatever. Some of those probably took that advice and did, just said, "I'm not worth it." But you take someone like Doug Flutie, and I know Doug a little bit. I don't know him that well, but he took it and said, "Oh yeah, I'll show you." And aside from his height, he could really sling it, which is very impressive for anyone, but it's someone his size. I mean, he could flat sling it. And how he didn't look over the line. Uh, he found creases and, I mean, he made it work. And, that's the most important thing is he made the most, out of his situations.
Do you think though, Brett, if he would have had a chance by a team to just give him the reins, because he bounced around and he did
Yeah.
well, but no team got behind him. And I think it was maybe is it because of his height, but if he would have had a team just get behind him, do you think he would have had a different career?
But, yeah, I do. I think, when he left BC, I wanna say he went to the Canadian League, at some point, whether it was right away or later on. And and you said it, he was never considered the guy. Like, we signed Doug Flutie today. He's our quarterback. He's gonna be our quarterback for, you know, as long as he can stay healthy and produce. Had he had that, I think, he would have been in the league and collected, a lot of wins, but statistically speaking, he would have been up there in the upper echelon. I mean, I was, remember back to those days, and I was always impressed by how he played, and his scrappiness, and I never looked at his height as a hindrance. Um, I think for him, it was motivation to prove I can do this regardless of how tall I am. But
And
yeah, to answer your question, I think had a team, you know, like got out in front of the media and said, "This is our guy. He will be our guy for as long as he can produce and stay healthy." I think, more people would know about Doug Flutie.
and when you look at quarterbacks, there's some big ones, small ones. You start to see some bigger ones nowadays, but I'm always kind of shocked when I'm around you because I'm not a little guy, but I'm around you and you're a thick guy. So when you're out there, did you ever notice that, hey, you could have probably played linebacker? Do you compare yourself to other quarterbacks and like, yeah, I'm a little bit more girthy or girdy?
Well, when I came into the league, um, I think from from a height perspective, I was, middle of the pack. 6'3" is not too tall. It's not short. But I was about 245 when I was drafted. And I played at 253 in the first Super Bowl. I know. Uh, I
What?
think the second Super Bowl, the following year, I was about 245, and I was a heavy lifter back then. I'm certainly not now. and you don't have to lift a lot to be a quarterback. But I think that was part of my reason for escaping injury. Was physically, I kept myself in as good a shape as from a weight room perspective. So I was kind of a weight room guy. Um, but I was always like Jim Kelly. Yeah, I'm thinking back to my early days. Jim was a big guy. Dan Marino was a big guy. John Elway. All three of those guys were about my size, maybe a few pounds more, a few pounds less, depending on the day. Uh, but now you see, I mean, it's crazy. You got 6'6", 260. And I mean, you don't see Doug Flutie's running around. And I'm obviously no offense to Doug, but the athlete in general, not just at the quarterback position, has I wonder, when does it stop? You got defensive ends that are 6'6", 275 that run 4.740s, maybe even faster. I mean, that's you better be able to move if you're a quarterback. You better be able to move a little bit, and to dodge and weave some. Obviously, Josh Allen is who is the kind of the poster child for big and very mobile at this point in the NFL. But yeah, the size of the player in general across the board has gotten bigger and more athletic. But if you were 6'3", 245 and played quarterback in 91, 92, you were in the upper echelon of size. No question.
I would still say you're not Cam Newton's a big guy, right?
Yeah.
6'6", 260, but then
Yeah.
you see Drew Brees where he's about an inch shorter than me, and then you have a Kyle Murray. You still see some of these smaller
Yeah.
guys, but for you being that size, do people are they shocked when they see how big you are, or even in your playing days?
I think I probably get more of a reaction of, "I didn't realize you were that big."
Mm.
Uh, if I get a reaction at all, I think the common theme that I hear and have heard, basically, even going back before I retired, it would be off season. Would be somewhere, and someone would come up and say, "Man, I didn't realize you were that big." And my response has always been the same. When you're standing next to two guys that are 6'9", 330, when I would get in the huddle in Minnesota and I had Bryant McKinney and Phil Loadholt, my left tackle and right tackle respectively. They were 6'9", 330, 335. I'm not going to look that big. So, uh, you know, uh, when they say that to me, I'm like, well, if you were in the huddle with me, you would see that these guys I'm standing next to are giants. And, uh, and that was pretty much the case. That was definitely the two biggest tackles that I had at the same time. But the line that protected me for all those years, they were big guys. So I'm not going to look big in the huddle.
Brett, UFC, Sean Strickland, Jordan Levitt. We just got to have to give a shout out to Jason Manley, who showed us around the UFC headquarters. Two of his guys that he was cornering won, and Sean Strickland had a TKO against Anthony Hernandez. So I just wanted to say congratulations to Jason Manley. Does a great job as a coach, and I don't think none of us wanted to get in the cage with him or any of his cohorts a few weeks back.
I mean, I ain't the smartest guy out there, but I am smart enough to know I want no part of that. Those UFC guys and girls, are in a class by themselves from an athlete perspective. Running a mile is not the hardest thing to do. Running a mile as fast as you can, that becomes harder. So working out and training and things that they do is not the hardest thing in the world. But when you throw in someone's trying to, excuse my French, someone's out to kick your ass and you're in a ring and it's you and the guy across from you, the girl across from you, and there's no one to save you. That that's a sport that um, where the heart really plays a huge part of it. Like, how much longer do I want to take this? You know, how much longer? They're looking up at the clock and you got a 5 minute round and someone's wailing on you and you can tap out or you can keep going. To me, it, and I know some people say it's too bloody and gory and all stuff. Well, you don't have to watch it. But those guys and girls, I have a tremendous amount of respect for. The level of athlete that they are and have become is unbelievable. So much respect to them.
After the fight, I was actually at the gym, and then I got on the boxing bag. I thought I was next up in the cage, Brett, but then I realized the bag doesn't punch back, and I'm so glad that the heavy bag does not punch me back, and I was good. I was like, "All right, game over."
Well, the the physical toll that athletics in general can take on you, and of course sports vary, but the toll that it's got to take. And you talking about hitting a heavy punching bag. I've walked through a gym and there was one, you know, hanging on a chain, and I was like, I'm gonna be, Mr. Cool, and the bag really didn't move. Yeah, I think you know what I'm talking about. Like, if you go in and just haphazardly just throw a punch in there, you might break your wrist. I mean, uh, you know, looks are deceiving. So I don't know if I would do very well in the UFC. I don't know if I would have the win capacity. I think I would have the grit, but there comes a point where you know I'm tired of getting my butt whooped, and he's got me in some chokehold that I have no idea how to get out of. I'm tapping out. But again, that level of athlete, and really, if you think about like when the UFC really started getting popular, what, maybe 10, 12, 15 years ago, where it like just shot, it was off in space. The the specialties that these fighters come up with, and like back in the day, there was a guy named Tank Abbott when I first started watching, and the announcer would say, and wherever he was from, and from such and such barroom brawler Tank Abbott. And that's what he was. He would go in there and he would throw haymakers and bombs. And if someone was schooled in wrestling, and before he knew it, he was in a hole and he couldn't get out of it. So it's developed into these specialty expertise, as I call them, and it's just not a right hook to the chin. It could be anything from anywhere, and you really have to be in super shape, but very keen on who you're fighting.
Bro, we had Forrest Griffin on Fourth and Far for our fight episode last, and he was saying that the new thing is kicking the calf and the thighs. And I don't know if you ever been kicked in the calf or the thigh. It hurts immensely. It makes you just want to stop doing whatever you're doing and lay down. Have you been kicked in the thigh or calf?
Not in a UFC fight, but in a similar way, like in football, like a foot will come up and catch you in the side of the thigh or right on the quad, or you get a helmet right to the quad. And you're right. It- when you get home after the game, after being kicked or whatever, and the dust kind of settles, and the rigor mortis, as I call it, settles in. You, uh, it definitely, when you think about how that relates to UFC, I'm like, I don't know how they do it, because we're not talking about one kick. We're talking about they may in one round get kicked 20 times, and
Mhm.
after a while, you see them start. They're protecting it, and at some point, the person being kicked says in their head, that stung. Maybe the first four didn't, but this one stung, and that's what the opponent is looking for.
I was sparring my buddy who was doing kickboxing, and he started kicking my leg for 3 rounds, and he wanted to kick. I was done, and he's like, "Why are you done?" I'm like, "I can't walk. Like, I think I have blood
Yeah,
clots in my leg. I'm done."
yeah. This is not fun at the playground.
Oh,
You're kicking the hell out of my leg, and I'm ready to quit.
yeah. Brett, you made some social media posts recently. You had 2 people that were close to you, Brad Arnold, James Van Der Beek, that passed. There was a Rich Eisen clip I saw of James Van Der Beek. He chose number 4 in Varsity Blues because of you. It was originally number 13. I thought that was a cool story. I didn't know if you knew that, but can you talk a little bit about Brad and James?
Yeah, so Brad, first of all, lead singer of Three Doors Down, mega group at one time, probably the most popular rock. I guess they would qualify as a rock group, but they were as big as anyone in the country. And Brad Arnold grew up 45 minutes from where I'm sitting right now, South Mississippi, just like I did. Got to know Brad. We used to have a charity golf tournament and concert um, down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and we had Tim McGraw do it for many years. Little Texas country group did it for multiple years, and Brad never performed, but he would always come and hang out. Super guy, just a first class, nice. I don't know what you would expect, but he was very nice to hang out with. Uh, and and I knew that several years ago that he was diagnosed with cancer. He's really maybe the same age as James. Now, James and I go back further, back when I was playing in Green Bay, um, mid 90s, maybe. Um, Deanna, in fact, we were talking about it 2 nights ago, and I was asking her what year it was. Like he and several other, like Justin Timberlake and some of that crew would come and sit in the box for a game. Uh, and so we struck Kid Rock, uh, you know, uh, and I'll probably think of others that came to Green Bay that probably never in their wildest dreams thought, why would I ever go to Green Bay? Well, we started getting really good and popular, and more people wanted to be a part of. And James kind of adopted the Packers as his team, and we got to know him and uh, his friends, and just a first class individual, both of them. Um, and like with a lot of things, you move on, you get older, you interests take you to different places, and we kind of, I say, lost touch a little bit, but we we reconnected back in October. I went back and looked. We watched a movie. Deanna and I and several friends were watching a movie in the house, and James was in it. And I can't remember the movie, but he was playing like a deranged, um, like person that was so uncharacteristic of him. And I sent him a message after. I said, "Hey, James, been a while. Just saw a movie with you playing some crazy deranged." I said, I don't know if this is good or bad, but you played the part very well. Uh, Uh, and 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 then I told him, I said, "I know you've been struggling with your health, and I'm pulling for you, praying for you. Deanna and I definitely have you in our prayers." He fired back, "Thanks. I'm doing much better. It's been tough." And you read between the lines. It seemed to me that he was turning the corner, and that was in October. And then, of course, he passes away. He and Brad, like just a few days apart. Um, and so young, 47, I think both were. Is I'm 56, so 47 is way too young. And I think James had 6 kids,
Wow.
so really sad.
Yeah, it was kinda heartfelt, and I saw a lot of people leave some comments about the impact that they made as well on their fans' lives, also. Brett, as we're closing out this episode, when the season ends and it seems like there's this lull for fans, and I don't know from a player's perspective of the lights are off. It's an off season. You got to wait till August. You played 20 years, 2 Super Bowls. Was there a season where it ended and you're like, what do I do now? And what did that feel like?
No, the off season for me was I loved to play, but the off season was a very enriching, or I'm trying to think of the word, time for me, because it was like I could decompress. I put everything. I'm not saying that I did it any different than anyone else, but I put my heart and soul into every season, from the workouts, from the study, preparation, mentally and physically. And so when it was over at the end of the season, it was kind of like, oh, I can I don't have to worry about studying for multiple blitz combinations this week, or Warren Sapp. He may be in my nightmares, but he's not physically going to bother me. So it was always good to decompress. I guess is the best way I can explain it. But I know that the other side of that is when you retire, it's for real, and there's no cheering. The lights are off. You're not being called out of the tunnel, uh, and how you handle that uh, is obviously very important. I mean, some people, I think everyone knows that that's inevitably going to happen. Your career is going to be over, whether it's your call or someone else's. And so you have to be ready, because I've seen and talked to a lot of guys I played with over the years that retired either before or after me. And I say, "Hey, how you doing in retirement?" Some say, "Great." I transitioned into, I'm assistant coach at the high school. I'm doing it for fun. I don't need the money. I'm having a blast. I'm traveling with my family. Life is good. And then the flip side of that, I talk to people that, man, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. Uh, I I don't know if I should work. I don't know if and I need a purpose, a reason to get up in the morning, and I don't have that. So that I never really thought about it until I started talking to former players that I played with or played against, and when they started saying those things, I never really thought about it, because when I retired for good, I hit the ground running, and it was like, I don't have enough time in the day. Nothing major, but I kept myself busy, and I think for me that was the most important thing. And so it's always interesting to me how former players transition into life after, and that can be said for is a microcosm of the end of your career. But when you go into the off season, typically, uh, you got 4 or 5 months that you pretty much on your own. You have a mini camp or something like that, but so it's kind of a a peek into your future, if that makes any sense. But it's always interesting and so important to have a plan when you transition.
Hail Mary question, Brett. The new season comes on, NFL 2026. You're able to change any rule or add a rule. What's that one rule that you would do and why?
Well, I don't know. I can't explain it because it's so complicated, but the kickoff rule, I have no idea what is going on. Uh, and I have like we'll be watching a game with friends and family, and they'll say, "So what's the deal with the kickoff?" And as a former player, I'm almost embarrassed. I'm like, I have no earthly idea. I have no clue. So either do away with it. I understand what the purpose of the change, and that's to protect players. I get that. I'm all for that. But either, but I mean, you have to announce now if you want to do an onside kick. The element of surprise is not there. That was a big part of the onside kick. Uh, and and again, I get it that they're trying to protect players, but you're taking what I consider a valuable piece of the game, even though it's a small piece, um, and you've I don't know, you've muddied it up so much that I have no clue, but either do away with it completely and just spot the ball, or throw something, you know, add a little spice to it and um, keep it, but change it up to where you know, I kind of like the 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 element of surprise in all of the game, some ways, shape, or form. And yeah, I think you're taking that out. Um, so I would, I just think it needs to be revamped or just done away with completely.
Brett, how do you want your $22, dollars or quarters when I see you?
I want them in pennies. They're doing away with pennies. They said it costs more to make a penny. It costs 5 cents to make a 1 cent penny. So I want they're knowing that they're going to be obsolete. I want them all in pennies.
I got you, Brett. We'll see you soon.